mainstream media is dead, or at least dying, right? And if you're on this side of political YouTube and political internet, then you probably agree with that statement that I just said right there. The only mainstream media channel you probably watch at this point is like GB News, which is fair enough. Very based, I do too. If anybody's watching from GB News, hit a girl up. I'd love to be on one of your shows. Anyway, but the rest of the people that you watch are probably independent media journalists and personalities like me, but also like some of the people I'm probably going to mention in today's video. Welcome back to Playing in Politics. I'm Anna. This is my politics and makeup podcast, where basically I sit down, I do my makeup, I talk about politics, and we have a jolly old time. The whole point of this channel is basically to make politics a bit more of like a light-hearted topic. We have a bit of fun, we have a bit of a laugh. We're trying not to make it so doom and gloom, although that has been difficult to do over the past few months and the past few episodes. But hello, by the way, to all of my new subscribers. I've been doing kind of shorts, which are a bit more like news updatey type things recently, and it's been garnering me quite a few views and subscribers, so hello to all the new people. This is kind of what I started my channel by doing, was makeup and politics. So this is kind of my more long-form content. Anyway, the point of today's episode is going to be a bit of a story time. It's going to be, it's going to get personal, you know? I wanted to kind of do a bit of a one, considering I have so many more subscribers now. I was going to do one that's basically just a bit more of a get to know me, and how I ended up in this space, and how I ended up starting this channel, which I kind of have already talked about before a little bit, but this one's going to be a little bit more detailed, because the independent media revolution is absolutely here, and it's taken over, and I love to see it. I ramble and I do makeup, as I say. This is, if you want to know at any point what I'm using, if you're interested in the makeup part, I always link and list all the products I'm using in the description. But yeah, welcome back to the channel. So, independent media, as I say, the mainstream media over the past few years has definitely been exposed as being biased, especially the BBC, which is weird because when I first started getting into politics, and I'm a Tory, by the way, if you guys don't know, I'm a young conservative still, somehow clinging on to my membership for grim death. I mean, I'm just glad that we've started going back to actually the physical cards and not the weird paper certificates, if you know, you know. In terms of kind of my faith in the party, I still have a little bit of hope, but as I say, I am kind of clinging on by a thread. But yeah, when I first started getting into politics, I was very much a BBC's Question Time and Prime Minister's Questions and watching Parliament debates on the BBC and things like that. And the BBC, because obviously I live in the UK and the BBC is the British Broadcasting Company, so corporation, sorry. So of course, that was the first thing that I found, was like, that's a good political source, let's go. And obviously, I mean, this was like back in 2019, so the GB News wasn't even a thing then. I don't think it was even an idea, which I'm sure there are other people out there who are going to have similar stories of like, yeah, that's how I started watching things, and then that's also how I started to realise that it was biased and whatever. How I started to realise it was biased, however, was when I started to get into watching more independent media journalists. The first one, and I'm going to mention a few today, as I say, this is just it's more of a personal story time. But the first one is, I'm sure somebody that a lot of people who are watching this video, if not all, will also be subscribed to, Mahyar Tousi. Now, I discovered Mahyar in 2020. It's a weird story, and as I say, this does get personal because I do have quite a lot of personal history with Mahyar since being first subscribed to him. So I first discovered Mahyar back in the summer of 2020, I think it was like August. Mahyar followed me on Twitter and then unfollowed me. Now, I had no idea who he was, alright? So I was like, who is this geezer? And I remember just seeing like, oh, he's like a political YouTuber, but at first I didn't really think anything of it. And then I don't know what happened. I think one of his videos may have shown up on my YouTube feed, and I thought, oh, I recognise this guy. Like, I don't know why, but I do. And I think I went back to my Twitter and realised that, yeah, it was Mahyar. It was this guy who'd followed me on Twitter and then unfollowed me, just randomly, I don't know. Which doesn't really happen a lot on Twitter even to this day, so that's probably why I was confused. I was like, who is this guy? But anyways, that's how I started to watch Mahyar Tousi's videos, and I instantly was converted. I was like, this guy is so interesting. I mean, back in 2020 he was doing a lot of, he was still talking about Brexit a little bit. Obviously, as you guys know, that's kind of how he started his channel originally back in the day, was doing more Brexit commentaries. Sorry, I washed my hair today and my fringe, there's this massive curl that's formed in the middle of my fringe, and I'm just going to keep talking as I try and separate this. But anyway, so yeah, so a lot of his stuff was still to do with like the Brexit negotiations, because there were kind of bits that were still being done on that end, but also he had started to talk a lot about like the lockdowns. Obviously this was COVID time, so he was doing quite a lot of scrutiny when it came to the government and lockdown policies and things like that, and I found it really, really interesting. So I just started watching his videos and ended up starting to watch them kind of every day. I don't really remember how many subscribers he was on at this point, but it was, I mean, it was quite a few, but obviously he's grown a heck of a lot more since then. I don't know how long you guys have been subscribed to him, if you are subscribed to him, and if you're not subscribed to him and you want like a standard kind of daily news source, then I definitely recommend going over to his channel, because that's kind of what he does now. Being a journalist, like when I first subscribed to him, he was definitely more of a commentator than a journalist, but obviously he has kind of morphed into independent media mogul that we know him to be today, which is fantastic. And I've definitely seen that growth personally, and this is where we kind of get into the more personal side of things. So fast forward a little bit to 2021. This is like March of 2021, we're in the third lockdown, and Mahyar announces that he is starting a Discord server. If you guys don't know what Discord is, basically, I mean, he's got one now, which is attached to TCTV Plus, which I joined recently just as on a whim, basically, because I thought, hey, it was kind of a nostalgia thing really, and we'll get into this, like we'll get into why in a second. Join it. I mean, to be fair, it's a little bit dead. I don't quite know, you know, I don't know why really, because it is a great platform for chatting and just, I mean, yeah, it's a chat forum, like that's what he's advertising it as, but it was a platform that was initially created for the gaming community, like the online gaming community, because it's good for video calling and chatting, and you can make servers kind of with your friends and channels to talk about different topics, and it's just a great, it is a really brilliant platform. But yeah, so the first time that he had a Discord server was back in 2021. I don't know if anybody remembers this, or if you're sort of part of the Discord server like the current one. If you are, I mean, I'm not underplaying politics in it. It is my Anna is Random username, which if you guys don't know is kind of my main username, because I do have two channels. I have a main one where I talk about more fashion and confidence advice stuff for women, and then this is the politics side of things, just so you're aware. Yeah, so that was the first one. Now obviously with it being third lockdown, and at the time he was also working with Lacey, who used to be his producer. She was also on there as well. It was a great old time. Now this was probably due to the fact that his community was a heck of a lot smaller back then, and a lot more kind of close-knit, I guess, when the first Discord started. But basically after the live streams that he used to do back, obviously he still does live streams now, but back then he used to do them as well, he would come on and there was a close group of us, and we'd play video games and we'd chat and we'd become like genuinely friends with him. Now my personal story starts with him because of this reason, and I have talked about this on my kind of main social medias as well, because it does link into a much bigger topic and much bigger thing that I went through in life. But I met my ex-boyfriend through that Discord server. Now he was one of the moderators and he was obviously in personal touch with Mahyar. As soon as me and him started dating, Mahyar also kind of got involved with that, because he was talking to, again, this is when it was kind of a lot more smaller of a community, and I guess he had a lot more trust in people, I don't know. Me and him also started to chat. Obviously we were talking on like the voice chats with everybody as well. We just got on, you know, with me dating my ex and then having that link to Mahyar, we just got on as like a trio. And over time the Discord started to die a little bit, I will not lie. There were several things that went into that. I think it started to become a little bit more, is hostile really the right word? I don't really know. I mean, if you were there, you probably could understand a bit better, but there were people who decided to rebel a little bit, and there's always one that spoils it for everybody. But basically the Discord, Mahyar stopped talking on the Discord as much, I think after all the drama kicked off, and we kind of lost touch with that community. Oh yes, I remember that that was the story now. We'd started our own Discord server because we realised that the one that was Mahyar's was basically dead. So we started a new one, kind of away from all the drama, and we were trying to involve Mahyar in it, but he was busy with other stuff, so he just wasn't. He'd taken a step back from that, I think, which, you know, is fair enough. It was a little confusing at the time, but it was fair enough to look back now. So we'd started the server, and I remember one night, actually, it's all coming back to me, but one night we were on the other Discord server and we were like, yo, where's the Mahyar one gone? He'd basically deleted the server, like, out of nowhere, which was like, whoa, what the fuck? That was a weird time. Some people basically started to ostracize him at that point. Like, it was a weird point. Told you this was gonna get personal, but it was a bit of a weird point. I mean, he was still doing good stuff over on the YouTube channel. I think just a few people had got a bit personally tarnished with him, which, you know, fair enough with what happened, because it was all very sudden. And, you know, we all learn, and it should have been a better communicated situation. There was part of me, though, that was very much still like, nah, there's something deeper to this. I don't think with the good, like, the good vibes that we had on the Discord server and the way he got on with everybody and the way he just was in general, because Mahyar's a good guy, right? And we'll get into this a bit later, but there was something in me that always said, nah, this guy's good, he's good at what he does, he's a perfectly good guy, surely there's an explanation to this. I remember, because this other server just kind of became a bit of a Mahyar hatred kind of server, which I wasn't really a fan of. I was like, guys, there's definitely a better explanation for this. And really, this whole rant about this whole personal story, like the conclusion of this I want to come across to you guys is that behind the cameras and everything, Mahyar is definitely a good person. He has to act sometimes in a professional way, and sometimes he's got to act to protect himself, and we all know that recently he's got into some serious trouble, which kind of through no fault of his own, but on the whole, in person, the guy is lovely, and, you know, he's just a solid dude. Anyway, so, as I say, at that time, this was still 2021, and I was saying, guys, no, there's got to be an explanation for this. Now, obviously, as I've previously mentioned, I was a Tory. I was a member of the Conservative Party. I'd literally I'd joined in 2019, but in the October of 2021 was my first time being able to go to conference, and it was in Manchester. And I went to uni in Bolton, so it was basically a few days of me commuting back and forth between Bolton and Manchester if I'd had a lecture that day or whatever. Like, I was going back and forth. And I met Mahyar for the first time, because if you guys didn't know this, Mahyar used to be a member of the Conservative Party as well. He had been for a long time. He's not anymore, which is completely respectable, because party politics doesn't really align with what he does now. And I know a lot of people have said, like, oh, he's biased, and, you know, he's still affiliated with the party, and he has said quite a few times, like, yeah, I used to be involved in party politics, I used to be a Conservative. He ran in a couple of local elections way back in the day, but he's not anymore, and as I say, that's completely okay. But yeah, so he, at that time, as I say, was a Conservative, and I knew he was going to be at conference because he was going to be there, maybe on his Twitter or his YouTube channel, that he was going to head to conference, and, you know, he was looking forward to meeting people. So in my head, because I know that we always had like a good relationship, I was hyped. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. I really want to meet Mahyar, but also wanted to get to the bottom of what had happened with the Discord server for the people who were still disgruntled. So there's me at 20 years old, waited like in the middle of the convention centre in Manchester, like, where is he? Where's Mahyar? And I remember seeing him come in, and I was like, Mahyar, let's go. And I just kind of made a beeline for him, and I will never forget when he saw me for the first time, the way his eyes lit up, like, oh my god, I'm so glad you're here, this is great. I was like, hi Mahyar, how you doing? That was kind of the start of our personal friendship, really, kind of in person. But yeah, so it was a few days of me basically hanging around with Mahyar, and it was great. And I remember we went to Spoons, because if you're aware, if you don't know, Spoons and Tory Party Conference, they go hand in hand, okay? Spoons tends to be kind of like the hub where people always go back to if they need somewhere to like meet up. It's like, I mean, I don't drink, but like there's an awful lot of free alcohol that goes around at Party Conference, and a lot of the time it is basically people's opportunity to meet with people they haven't seen in a while and also get drunk. So, so a lot of the time people are like, oh, let's go for a spoon's breakfast as a hangover cure kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of thing, or like if people want like a break from the security area, or they're trying to decide where they want to go next, it's like, let's go to Spoons, let's get a drink, let's decide. So that's kind of the vibe. But I remember we went to Spoons and we basically just had like a good old chat, and I can't even really remember. I think it was because of the drama that had gone down and it was just getting too much and to kind of manage, and it kind of got a bit out of control, that he just decided to pull the plug on it. I think he did apologise for doing it kind of out of the blue and not really telling people, but that was kind of sorted. And as much as some people at the time didn't really take that apology as an apology, they were like, that's not good enough. And I was like, it is, guys, calm down. I was always on his side, and I always have been, and I always will be. But yeah, it was a brilliant few days, and we definitely kind of built a good start to our friendship there. And if you guys don't know, Mahyar went to Manchester Metropolitan University to do his degree, so Manchester is kind of a second home for him. I don't know if he hasn't really talked about that recently, but he has definitely said it in the past, and he does have a fondness for the north. He definitely is not a London is everything type person. He definitely does have an appreciation for the Northwest and for Manchester for that reason, which, you know, I really do appreciate. So, I mean, the one highlight I will say from those few days though, and this might be outing him, is that I don't know if he's still like this, but at the time, Mahyar has an affiliation, as I'm sure a few of you do, for drinking alcohol on an empty stomach. The man refuses to, or at least did at the time, refused to acknowledge the fact that it's better to drink alcohol when you have a lining in your stomach, okay? It's just, it is what it is. Now, me, obviously, not drinking, and also being a very protective mentality to those who don't drink, I'm like, Mahyar, you are going to eat something before you drink anymore. We are going to eat food. And I remember, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been like the second to last day, that basically it was me and him at like 10 p.m. going to one of the Mackies in Manchester, because I was like, we need food, because I was hungry as well, so I was like, I need food, you need food, we're going for food. And I remember that he was trying to like delay it, and he was like, no, like, where's this person, what's this? And I'm like, Mahyar, food. And he was like, yes, okay, fair enough, let's go. So that was me at like 20 years old, like being his mother. It was really funny, but it is a memory I will always cherish, as much as all the others that I'm going to mention in this story time. So that was the first time that I'd met him, and as I say, it was a really overall quite positive experience, and if any of you have met Mahyar in person, I'm sure you can relate. He is a lovely, lovely guy. The second time I met him was, again, in Manchester, really. It was a subscriber meetup he was doing. I don't even really know if it was anything special, really. I think it was just because it was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do a subscriber meetup just cause. Or maybe I think he was trying to launch something, because he's had a few moments in the past where he's had these big ideas for like these big initiatives, and Tousi TV Plus is obviously like the big manifestation of all of that energy, which I'm really proud of him for, and the stuff that he's doing with the documentaries and everything is fantastic, where he is now beyond proud. But he has definitely been on a journey to get where he is. I'll mention this a bit later as well, because this was another thing. But he, as I say, has had a few moments of having these ideas and initiatives and really wanting to launch things, and like something that's going to kind of outlive him, like a grassroots campaign kind of thing. So I think that's what this next meetup was about. I remember this one distinctly, and I do have a picture of us just to prove that this story is real. I'm gonna have to blur out my ex's face and we'll get to this, but I got there before my partner did, and we'd said some joke or something, and he turned to me and was like, I've missed you, and I was like, I missed you too. So again, just a really lovely vibe. At this point I did have his number, because me and my partner at the time had gone to London for New Year, kind of from 2021 to 2022. The next Manchester meetup was March of 2022. So we'd been in London for the New Year. I think my ex, because he'd still got Mahyar's number from being a moderator, and I think they were still talking, so he'd then given me Mahyar's number, and I think that's kind of another big reason why our friendship kind of started to blossom as well. But I remember the night after, because he hadn't been able to get like a train home or something, so he'd stayed an extra night, and I remember him messaging me the next night like, hey, come back out to Manchester, because he knew that I was in Bolton. He was like, hey, come back out to Manchester because we haven't been able to get home yet. And I was like, nah, I've got like lectures in the morning or something. I can't remember what I'd said. I was like, nah, I'm in bed. Like, I got ready for bed and I had like stuff to do in the morning or something. I can't remember if it was like a weeknight or not, or whether I had like church or something. It was something like that anyway, but yeah, it was just funny. So that was the next time that we saw each other, and then we didn't see each other until the summer of that year. And this is where things do get really personal. So strap in, folks, buckle in, because this is something, as I say, I have talked about on my main accounts, but I do like to just touch on it. And I think because Mahyar had such an involvement in this story and kind of almost saved my life in a way, and we'll get to this, but this is just kind of my moment of appreciation for just, and want to let you guys know as well just how much he meant to me at that time, and again, just to solidify kind of what a great guy he is, you know. As I say, so I did meet my ex through Mahyar, as I've previously mentioned, and unfortunately that relationship was mostly abusive. I won't really go into that much detail. I have a video on my main channel that it does go into a lot more detail about kind of why and the whys and wherefores and kind of the stuff that I went through with him. But basically he was a borderline alcoholic, very mentally unstable, me being like, well, 21 at that point, but quite unaware of the fact that I was love bombed and was kind of trapped in a situation that I should not have been, and I didn't really know how to get out of it because I was 21 and I just graduated uni and I'd moved in with him, and it was not the best. As I say, I do have a whole video going over kind of more in detail kind of what I went through, just not pleasant, but basically. And if any of you have ever been in an abusive relationship, you know that you don't really know how to say it to other people because you don't necessarily always know that what you're going through is not right. You just think that if your partner's maybe like going through something, or that you're just being a supportive partner, and you're not aware that you're being trapped into a cycle of abuse. But basically, again, video on my main channel going into detail. I'm not going to go into like the exact details in this video, but the reason why Mahyar is significant in this story is because at the time I was working on a merchandise design for him. Now I don't know if anyone remembers the Bull Black Britain merchandise. I'll put it on the screen. This was me, this was my design, and it's a shame that he doesn't sell them anymore, but again, it makes sense, and we'll get into this because this was another point where he was trying to plan an initiative, plan kind of a legacy kind of grassroots campaign that was going to outlive him, basically. Yeah, he basically said like, do you want to do this for me? Like, do you want to get involved in this campaign? And obviously with me being a good friend of his, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And obviously also being straight out of university and he was paying me for it, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Give me the money, let's work together, let's do this. Absolutely, I support you with anything, hands down. Mahyar, you're amazing. So I did that merch design for him. So we were talking a lot more, basically, is my point, and we were getting quite close actually. It was really great, you know. We were having a good kind of laugh and a joke together. I remember it because 2022, if you guys remember, was quite a bad heat wave, and obviously Mahyar was in central London at that point, and we were joking about kind of how hot it was getting, and I was like, I'm glad I'm not there where you are, because it was like 36 degrees or something stupid in central London. So I just remember we were kind of having a joke about that as well, and again, it was just all good stuff, and I felt like I could really, like, he was a really good, you know, just a really good friend. And there was one night in particular that did stand out, and it was, again, the details of what happened are in my main channel video. I'm not necessarily going to go into detail about exactly what happened, but there was a quite severe incident, quite a scary incident that happened with my ex, again involving alcohol and him being drunk and basically me being scared I was going to get assaulted. Quite scary, quite traumatic. And I remember at the time thinking, I can't, because again, I hadn't really told people what was happening, and I think that incident happening and kind of the next few years involving Mahyar, as I'll talk about, it was quite the turning point where I was like, okay, this isn't normal, something's got to change. I'm putting up with too much here. And I remember there was a family member that came round when this incident was going on and basically turned to me and was like, I wouldn't blame you if you kind of just went somewhere else and took a break for a few days. So I ended up going to London because, again, I was talking to Mahyar a lot and we were working together on this thing, and I was like, mate, and obviously because he knew my ex as well, was there in the whole process, I was like, the only person who's really going to understand this is Mahyar. So I went down to London. There's a vlog again on my main channel where I went to London, and I vlogged kind of the whole experience. Talks a lot just to kind of about how grateful I was to be able to go down to London, and I never really talked about why I'd gone down to London properly until my video which I've mentioned quite a lot, which was my 1 year post being in an abusive relationship, what I've learned, and I talked about why I went to London. It was to escape and clear my head from what was going on with my ex. And this was when I say that Mahyar honestly saved my life. If I hadn't met up with him, we went to a house party of a mutual friend of ours, where we basically had a conversation about just everything, and I kind of explained like, I kind of explained a little bit of kind of the alcoholism and kind of what was happening pre going to London, but I'd explained a little bit more about kind of how I felt. And he was going through some similar things at the time, and well, not necessarily similar things, but he was going through some relationship issues. And so we basically just had like a good chat about just life. He basically said to me like, I hope you work things out, just don't overcompromise and you'll be fine. And it was that phrase, like, just don't overcompromise and it'll be fine, that honestly was the light bulb. And again, if you've been in that kind of situation, you know it takes somebody saying just one thing, one phrase, and just finally having that conversation and getting it out in the open that will start to open up your eyes basically to what you've been putting up with. And that phrase honestly was exactly what I needed to hear. If he hadn't said that to me, I would have stayed in that situation a lot longer, and God knows what else I would have gone through. So I honestly, when I say I'm so incredibly grateful to Mahyar for that time in our friendship, and just that conversation is insane, and I have told him that in the past as well, but I just want to reiterate it for the camera, just reiterate it for the sake of this episode and the sake of this story. But yeah, it was just absolutely transformative for my mindset. As I say, it just opened up my mind entirely to what I was putting up with. It was like, yeah, I have been overcompromising. Oh my god, I haven't seen it like this until you said that. Wow, Mahyar, thank you so much. And I spent the next few days basically continuing to talk to him about it, and yeah, he was a little bit of like an emotional rock for me at that time. It did cause some complications when I did finally break up with my ex, because he decided to go on a complete rampage and blame Mahyar for everything, which was not fair at all. That caused a little bit of a rift, but then we met up again briefly at Conservative Party Conference 2022. So fast forward a couple of months. For context, I left my ex in the August of 2022, and then the incident and when I met Mahyar was late July, and then in August I was actually able to finally leave. Like, it was about 2 weeks before it finally snapped, you know? So yeah, I was able to then go home and spend a couple of months just kind of recharging and trying to process what had gone on, and also just watch Mahyar's videos. I was still watching him even though we weren't kind of talking at that time. As I said, we met up briefly in 2022 in Birmingham at Conservative Party Conference there. He was only there for 1 day. That was really nice. It kind of cleaned the slate of what had happened in the summer, and yeah, we just had a kind of a nice 24 hours, and I met some great people through him. It was an interesting night, just kind of away from Mahyar, kind of the new people that I'd met that night, which I guess is a whole other story, probably for my main channel, of what happened that night. But anyway, but yeah, I just want to kind of thank him for, again, that time and just being there for me and what he was able to do for me. And as I say, that friendship is something I will never ever forget. And in a way, I wish we still talked, because we had a couple of interactions after that. I think I was a member of his channel kind of beginning of 2023, and we had a bit of a catch up after one of the members calls once, and then he had another event in Manchester in the March of 2023 where we met up again briefly, and that was lovely. recently. The last time I saw him was March of last year, 2024, where again he had another Manchester meetup, which was his 500,000 subscriber meetup, I think, or something like that. That was quite brief, but it was nice, and that was the last time I saw him. I don't have his number anymore or anything, because he had some security issues in kind of late 2022 where he had to kind of keep changing his number, and then I ended up just losing it because he changed it and just didn't give me the new one, which was fair enough, you know. Sometimes friendships just kind of run their course, but as I say, that is something I will always cherish and will always be grateful for that friendship, because it did mean so much to me and it did help me so much during that time of what I was going through. So yeah, that was kind of the personal story over, I guess. But I still watch Mahyar daily, and I am so incredibly proud of how far he's come with his channel. As I say, with Tousi TV Plus is fantastic, and obviously Dan, his new presenter, who was brilliant as well, who has now put me on to British Stand as well, which is obviously Dan's channel, and Dan's great, as I've said, you know, so proud of what he's been able to achieve in like, what, 6 months? Like, he started in the summer, didn't he, with the Southport Attacker, which we've talked a lot about on my shorts, as well as the last podcast episode, but then is able to grow exponentially, and yeah, is fantastic. But yeah, I just wanted to tell that story because I don't think I've ever actually properly told it in detail. I think I may have mentioned it in like my first ever podcast episode, but in terms of kind of going into detail, it has been something I've wanted to do for a while, as I say, because Mahyar just meant so much to me, and I still watch his channel daily. I'm still a big fan. So yeah, now you guys know. He was a big propellant really in getting me into wanting to do this, as much as just kind of my own interest in politics. But yeah, so kind of through him as well, I also discovered Alex Belfield, which I have talked about in my last podcast episode. Alex was somebody, I think I might have discovered him through Mahyar, because Mahyar was talking about him, or maybe it was somebody on the Discord who mentioned that you watched Alex Belfield. But Alex, of course, as we all know, is currently still in jail. He's coming out in June, and I did talk about this in my last podcast, well, not in my last podcast episode, but I talked about it in my 2025 politics predictions video, which basically said like, oh, I wonder what he's going to be back like when he comes back. Now, I did talk about this in a short, I think, reacting to the video that came out on Alex's birthday earlier this month, which was interesting. If you've watched it, you know, AI Alex. And we finally got to hear what Tarquin sounds like, which is fantastic. I mean, I think it's going to be just as unhinged and just as funny as it always was, but unhinged and possibly kind of uneasy and uncomfortable at times, but that's all that's what we know about Alex Belfield. As I mentioned in that video, actually, I did go to one of his shows once, one of his Blackpool shows, just his solo one, not one of his ones with Katie Hopkins, which, as I said in the original video, I did actually kind of enjoy. It was a nice night. He's a funny dude. You can tell he's definitely grown up with kind of the old style English comedians, which, I mean, thanks to my dad, I kind of grew up watching. I went with him to Ken Dodd's very last Blackpool show in like 2018. It was 2017 because I remember it was my first year of sixth form, which was a great experience. And obviously, if you guys know kind of the show busy type side of Alex Belfield, you know that he worked with Ken Dodd and he did like an interview with him and posted it, I think, when Ken Dodd died. As I say, you can tell that he's definitely got that influence from the old style kind of comedian comedy, which is good and it works for his personality and kind of what he's aiming to do. But of course, Alex then went to prison and we've been waiting for his return. Mahyar's opinion on Alex, I mean, I don't know if Mahyar's necessarily going to cover Alex Belfield when he comes out of prison. Mahyar was a supporter of Alex Belfield and then wasn't. I remember when Alex went to prison, I don't even know if I'm really supposed to tell this, but when Alex went to prison, obviously everything kind of came out that, oh, he actually is a little bit dodgy, and I remember I think Mahyar had stopped talking about him on his channel for that reason, because he'd realised that he wasn't really best for PR purposes and was just a bit nutty, and yeah, what he'd done, some of the things that he'd done in terms of the stalking was a bit weird. So it was a little bit of like okay, yeah, it's good that he's gone to prison because he needs to learn his lesson in a way. It'll be interesting to see who does talk about him when he comes back. I mean, I will. Well, it depends, but at the moment I think I will talk about it because he is very funny, and if he keeps up the energy that he did and doesn't come back with like a revengeful, then I think he will do very well. That's kind of my relationship with Alex Belfield. As I said, I did go to one of his shows and it was very good. And he was another one alongside Mahyar during kind of 2021, 2022 that I was watching on a regular basis. They were kind of the iconic duo. Basically. I also watched GB News quite a lot. I mean, I remember my last year of uni, it was like a morning routine thing of like, I'd wake up and I'd have my breakfast whilst watching GB News. It was like the first thing that I did, because I had a Fire TV stick in the side of my uni room TV. Like, I remember when the Ukraine war started and I watched that on GB News. I remember the morning of it happening, which is probably not the greatest memory to have, but you know, the reason that I know about it was because of GB News. GB News is something that is quite frequent at party conference. I mean, I've been to 4 party conferences now, and I've been there at every single one. Patrick Christie's as well is always there. He's like the one guy that we always see just kind of roaming around. I mean, it is definitely a life goal of mine to get on GB News to be a guest. I mean, I've talked about this in kind of my earlier podcast episodes, and you might have noticed it in my shorts, because I know I can't really edit them as much as I do like the main episodes. But I do have a stammer, I do have a speech impediment, which is something that has been a source of embarrassment and insecurity for me for many, many years. I started with it when I was about 8 years old, kind of on and off, and it wasn't too bad until all of a sudden when I turned like 16, 17, 18 years old. Well, it was kind of from the ages of 15, but like from 15 onwards, for some bizarre reason, my brain went, oh, this is something we can keep. I know like 70% of people grow out of them. She's not. I mean, it does kind of run in my family, like my uncle has one, or at least did have one. I think he went to speech therapy, which kind of helped, but you know, we all kind of get over it. And to be fair, I am quite grateful that mine is quite mild. I mean, it does pop up at the most inconvenient of times. Like, saying my name, for instance, is very much an inconvenience most of the time. And also, I'm a graphic designer, and well, that has been less of a problem over the past kind of 12 months, I'd say, but back when it first started to solidify, that was crazy. Like, and it was bad because it was something I was trying to do at sixth form, and trying to tell people that's what I was doing at sixth form and then university was absolutely impossible. I sounded like an idiot. A lot of the reason why I do want to go on GB News as well, with it all the time being live TV, is that I want to kind of spread stammer awareness, do that for myself and my younger self. He was really more embarrassed of a stammer, but also for other people who stammer out there, to kind of prove, hey, we don't have to let it control our lives. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I want to go on GB News, but also because I just have a mad respect for it. So yeah, that is a life goal of mine, and one of the reasons why I started doing independent media and why I started doing this channel as well was hopefully to get noticed by GB News, which sounds a bit mad, but again, it has been a life goal of mine since GB News' kind of inception, and since people like Mahyar used to go on it. He used to go on it quite a lot when it first started, and I remember when GB News was about to launch, it was back in the Discord days, and he was teasing that he was like had an involvement with him. He was like, I've signed a contract, that's all I can tell you. And I remember we were all like, yeah, but what is it? Like, we won't tell anyone. And he's like, bro, I signed an NDA, I can't tell you. Yeah, but what is it? Can we tell you? We were insufferable, I swear. I mean, I think I at the time was like, guys, he can't tell you, shut up. And they were like, yeah, but we want to know, we're not going to say anything. We're like your best mates, Mahyar, come on. I mean, to be fair, as I say, we were a lot closer back then. But yeah, no, it was a great time. But he doesn't really go on there anymore, I guess, because, I mean, it's come under some controversy, obviously, with when Dan Wootton got fired, and also Mark... what's his face? Oh god, I can't remember his name now. But yeah, so they've come under a little bit of controversy in terms of the presenters and kind of switching out their staff, which I suppose he wasn't really a fan of, which is fair enough. You know, you don't have to be a fan of everything, do you? Am I in focus? I hope I am. Anyway, say that is a big goal of mine, is to get on GB News, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this as well. Not only because since getting into politics and also since getting into kind of independent media channels have I just grown such a passion for free speech and for kind of independent media and being able to champion it and calling out the bias of the mainstream media and the mainstream establishment, because that is what comes with independent media. Getting into it is that you really wake up to a lot of the establishment lies and cover up, which you don't realise if you're just walking around as a normal citizen. You don't realise just how much stuff is getting covered up. But yeah, you really do get used to calling out the mainstream media and, again, just realising how much is being hidden from us. You really don't realise how much brainwashing is going on in the mainstream media, and I think it is a really powerful thing to be doing, is to get on platforms like X or like YouTube and to start exploring and find the people who you align with. And even if, you know, like whatever side of the spectrum that you fall in terms of politics, there is gonna be somebody there for you. Even if it's Owen Jones, like, even if it's someone kind of that side of the spectrum, you know, regardless, it's, you know, it's great to find a voice that aligns with you and aligns with your values and what you want to hear be talked about. And as I say, Mahyar Tousi is the biggest one, really, you know, and he does say that all the time, you know, we are the media, which is true, we are, you know, and that's it. It's not just that he's the media, even though he seems to be, because he's the biggest one on YouTube, but we are all the media. Like, the point of him saying that, and as he said before, is that, you know, it's on all of us. It's on all of us to be talking about these things, you know. It's not just up to him, it's not just up to Dan, it's not just up to Alex Belfield, it's not just up to Katie Hopkins, it's not just up to Brett Cooper talking about how she got kicked off the Daily Wire and the conspiracies that happened behind the scenes. If you're following that story, I mean, I know she's uploaded now, and I do actually need to watch that video on a new channel, but, you know, I used to watch the comment section quite a lot, just kind of because she often, like, would upload quite a lot of shorts, and I don't know, I just found her really interesting, and she's my age, and, you know, that whole story got me really intrigued. But that really is a story of how we always need to kind of stand up to censorship and attempts at censorship, and I think that was one of them, really, even though it was like a bit of a backstab. But she's gonna do great things on her own because she has the bravery to do it, and it is a bravery thing, you know. Not everyone is gonna be brave enough to do this, and hey, if you are okay with just listening and commenting on people's stuff, that is enough. You do not have to, like, start your own channel, you know. Speaking up, again, just means putting comments on people's videos, supporting the people who are telling the truth, and, you know, you never know where that could lead. And it is all good. The way that this video is titled is like, the independent media revolution is here, and it's winning, and the mainstream media is dying, and it's a great thing to see. And this is probably something that I can say as well, that's probably a good thing to, like, a good homework task, I suppose, for you guys as you're watching this video, is that if you have anybody that you watch on YouTube in terms of your independent media channels, that's not me, obviously, like, you can't say in the comments, I watch Anna on Playing in Politics, because you're literally here. Use some discretion. But if you have anybody, maybe you watch Mahyar Tousi and you also want to, like, hype him up in the comments, like, go ahead, I'm all for that, I'll hype him up with you. Or, you know, as I say, if there's anybody else that you watch that you want to turn other viewers onto, then leave that in the comments, you know. Start a conversation about how you got into watching, you know, the independent media people, how you found me, for instance, or whatever, you know. Just the more conversations that we have, the better, and I think that's the big conclusion. As I've said, you know, to reiterate Mahyar Tousi's slogan about, like, you know, we are the media. We really are, but we can't be the media if we don't speak up and continue to uplift and support people who are telling the truth and who are sticking up for, like, the normal people out here and the regular patriotic British people who we should all be, in whatever way that means to you. I'm gonna finish my makeup off camera because otherwise I'm just gonna be chatting, and I will come to you guys with my concluding thoughts. The makeup always looks so much better once I've put my lip on, right? I'm sorry that the lighting's gone terrible again. I always film these at the worst possible time. Always when the sun's going down. I need to get better at that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As I say, this is kind of my longer form content if you guys are used to my shorts. I am going to still keep doing those because they've been doing really, really well, and I think that doing more kind of news updates is definitely something I want to take this channel in terms of direction. But I am going to keep a lot of, like, the long form content just kind of the chatty discussions about different topics and kind of also current affairs like I normally do. But any of like the breaking news stuff, as I say, will probably be still on the short side of things. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As I say, if you have any personal stories you want to share about the people that you watch, leave them in the description, in the comments, sorry, not the description, God. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this was informative. I hope you got to know me a little bit better and kind of my background as to how I got into this and what motivated me and what kind of started this whole thing. I mean, really what started kind of me doing the shorts was just kind of a spur of motivation, but also now that Mahyar's got kind of his new presenter, I thought I should probably up my game as well, and I want to keep doing that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like. All my other information, like my main channel and my Instagram and my Twitter and everything, are in the description if you guys want to go check that out. But yeah, make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more from me. Yeah, as I say, just start a good old discussion in the comments. Let's have a good supportive time, and I will see you guys in my next video, or short, or whatever you see me in. Just have a good one.